In this video, we are going to discuss the process of submitting your protocol to the IRB, beginning with who should be included on the protocol. Obviously, the principal investigator, co-investigators, and any study personnel. Anyone involved with recruiting or who directly interacts with research subjects or has access to identifiable private information should be included. Co-investigators and principal investigators will have to approve the submission in Razor Grant, whereas other study personnel will not. All that means is that the investigators have to confirm that this protocol is ready to be submitted and to go to the IRB for review. It is not the same thing as approval from the IRB. Now, let's discuss the criteria the IRB will use for determining approval. What exactly is the IRB going to be looking for? Primarily, risks to participants have to be minimized. We do not want to put anyone at undue risk. Next, the risks have to be reasonable compared to the potential benefits from the study. There has to be an equitable selection of research participants unless you can provide a good justification why there should not be. In other words, you do not want to target a very narrow pool of potential participants unless you can justify that with the purpose of your study. If there is a reason for you to do so, it can be approved. But you can't just target a very narrow population out of convenience or because you're personally only interested in that subpopulation. There has to be a scientifically justifiable reason for doing this. This next one is absolutely critical. You have to have informed consent. You may not trick people into enrolling in your study. You cannot enroll them without their knowledge. We will look at informed consent in greater detail here in a moment. Next, you have to be able to secure the data you obtain. Privacy and confidentiality of subjects are critical. Please do not go on Twitter or Instagram and tell all your followers details about the participants you are enrolling in your study. That would be a violation of the participant's privacy. Again, you must have additional safeguards in place when those vulnerable populations are enrolled in your study, such as children or prisoners, for instance. Finally, you must have the resources available to protect the study participants. You have to have the time to conduct the research, and you have to have the qualified staff and the proper facilities to conduct the research. Now we are going to look more closely at informed consent. There are several tenets of informed consent your protocol must meet, all based on the principle of autonomy. First, everybody has the right to decide for himself or herself whether or not to participate in your study. If there are experimental procedures, participants must be able to understand that there are some potential risks involved. Next, participation absolutely has to be voluntary. You cannot coerce or force people into your study. You must allow the person enough time to decide whether or not he or she wants to participate. Do not pressure them to make any rush judgments. You will need to give them an explanation as to what you intend to do, give them time to consider it, and allow them to make an informed decision. You have to allow the participant the freedom to withdraw at any time. Even if he or she gets all the way up to the very end of the study and at the last minute says, "I quit," you have to let that person quit. Now, that can be very frustrating for the investigator, but this is what the regulations require. You absolutely cannot coerce them into staying in the study against their will. If the subject is unable to give informed consent, perhaps because the subject is an infant, you need to get the legally authorized representative to give informed consent on his or her behalf. That may be a parent or otherwise legally assigned guardian. When you create your informed consent form, there are several required elements. First, you need to provide participants with a clear explanation of your research, including how long it's going to take, a description of the procedures, a description of exactly what you're going to do to them, and identify any procedures that might be considered experimental. Next, you need to give a clear description of any foreseeable risks or discomforts a participant might experience. Again, a lot of the studies we're doing here on campus involve surveys, and there's not a lot of risk there. But if there are any risks associated, you have to inform your participants of them. You will also have to let participants know what possible benefits may be expected to come out of the study. If you are conducting a clinical trial, you have to let participants know if there are alternative procedures or courses of treatment available. For research that involves more than minimal risk, you have to explain what the compensation or other treatments are if the person happens to get injured during the study. You also need to include your contact information so that participants can reach you if they have questions about the study or if they have concerns about their rights. Participants have to know to whom they can turn to get answers at any time during the study. Next, you need a statement of voluntary participation. Again, you have to let them know they are free to withdraw at any time. They can't be forced to participate against their will. And finally, you'll also have to affirm that their records will be kept confidential, including, if necessary, a statement describing how identifiable private information or identifiable biological specimens will be handled and treated. The IRB may determine on a case-by-case basis that additional elements need to be included in order for the study to be approved, and then the IRB coordinator will contact the researcher to let him or her know. As I mentioned earlier, additional protections are needed whenever you are working with vulnerable populations, as stated in 45 CFR 46, subparts B through D, including pregnant women and newborns, prisoners, and children. Other vulnerable populations may include mentally disabled persons who may need additional assistance to safeguard their safety. Economically or educationally disadvantaged people may require additional protections, as well as other persons with some form of diminished decision-making capabilities, for example, participants with dementia. For these populations, there may be a legally appointed guardian who can help with the decision-making process. Informed consent from your participants must be documented. While there are a few scenarios in which the IRB may waive that requirement, those projects will be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, you need to get a signed consent form from each participant as documentation that informed consent was obtained before participation in the study began. Now we are going to discuss who can participate in your research study. Faculty members may want to know if they can enroll their students in their research studies. The answer is yes, but with some caveats. Again, you have to have informed consent, except where waived by the IRB. You must avoid coercion and undue influence. You cannot punish students, for example, by giving them lower grades or extra homework because they refuse to participate. If you choose to offer extra credit for participation in your research study, you have to offer an alternative means to earn extra credit for those who do not want to participate in your study. It has to be fair. You cannot offer an unfair, course-related benefit that might coerce or unduly influence students to participate in your research study. If you do choose to enroll students, it should be in protocols that involve no more than minimal risk. If you are looking at a high-risk protocol or one that involves invasive procedures, you should probably avoid enrolling your students. What about using international students as participants? A situation happened at another institution not too long ago where an international student participated in a research study conducted by a university researcher. The student received some compensation for participating, and that compensation turned out to be a violation of the terms of the student's visa. This is tricky because almost anything you give a participant can be considered compensation, including money or even a gift card or any item with any value. The State Department and the Department of Homeland Security, two agencies that issue visas, both consider participating in research studies and receiving any form of compensation, such as money, gift cards, or any item of value, as employment. Because employment was a violation of the student's visa terms, the student's visa was revoked and the student was forced to leave the country. Of course, It is the student's responsibility to be aware of all the terms of his or her visa, but researchers should discuss compensation with any potential study participant who may be here on a visa. We certainly do not want to get anybody deported for participating in a university research study. If you have any questions about international students, please contact the Research Compliance Office. Now let's discuss international collaborations. If you are collaborating with a researcher in another country on a project that meets the definition of human subjects research, or maybe collecting all your data in another country, the research protections that exist in that country must meet or exceed those of the United States. Your research must be approved by the equivalent of an IRB in the host country. You should be sensitive to cultural norms and make sure that your recruitment and informed consent forms are in a language that can be easily understood by your research subjects in the host country. Now to review, let's play a game called Do I Need IRB Approval or What? Question 1. You're doing a study to determine if consuming a protein shake supplement plus exercise leads to greater strength when compared with exercise alone. Do you need IRB approval to do that? Yes, of course you do. That was an easy one that clearly meets the definition of human subjects research. Question 2. You're looking at DNA sequences from the bones of people who lived in the mid-19th century. Is IRB approval needed? The answer is no. Human subjects research involves living human beings. I guarantee you that nobody who was alive during the Civil War is still alive today. Question 3. You're conducting a survey to find out how to get more people to come to the museum on campus, and also to help our campus population realize, hey, we have a museum on campus. Do you need IRB approval for that? No. This does not meet the definition of research. You're just trying to figure out how to increase the number of people who are aware of the museum and get them to visit it. So that's not research, and no IRB approval is required. Question 4. You're surveying Arkansas residents to determine how their educational levels correlate with voting preferences in local elections. Do you need IRB approval? This one's a maybe. It depends on what you intend to do with that information. If you're going to write a newspaper article about it, then it falls under journalism and it is not considered research. On the other hand, if you are publishing your work in a peer-reviewed journal and you are contributing to the generalized body of knowledge, then it may meet the definition of research, and then your project would be subject to IRB approval. Again, the activity itself may not tell you a whole lot, but what you intend to do with the findings can determine whether or not it meets the definition of human subjects research. Last question. You're not sure what you want to do right now, but you know you're going to publish your results when you're done. Do you need IRB approval? That's another maybe. Again, it depends on what you mean by publish. If you're going to write a newspaper article or maybe write a book, that may not constitute human subjects research. On the other hand, publishing in peer-reviewed publications, if you're contributing to generalizable knowledge, then that's research. How did you do? I hope this presentation gave you a deeper understanding of the IRB requirements and approval process for human research studies. When you are ready to submit your IRB protocol, remember that you must use RazorGrant, which you can access through research.uark.edu. We also have a great support team standing by if you need assistance navigating IRB submission processes through RazorGrant. We also offer a free monthly RazorGrant IRB submission training, and dates for these are posted online. I also want to let you know about additional training materials that are available through the city website. That's citiprogram.org. The University of Arkansas has an institutional account with Citi to provide you with this training for free. When you click in Login on the upper right, navigate to Institutional Access, select University of Arkansas Fayetteville, and use your existing UARK ID and password. Citi provides learning modules information on a wide variety of subjects, including human subjects research, also research misconduct, conflict of interest, responsible conduct of research, and others. There are a number of modules that you can select from. If you have any questions about how to enroll in and view a particular module, call the Research Compliance Office and we will be more than happy to help you. Anytime you have general questions, as in, how do I get Razor Grant to cooperate with me? You can contact the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs and speak with one of our Razor Grant gurus. If you have IRB specific questions, reach out to our IRB coordinator in the Office of Research Compliance. Once again, if you have any IRB or compliance questions, we're here to help. Visit our website for the Office of Research and Compliance at rscp.uark.edu. You can also reach out directly to the IRB coordinator or to myself, and here's our contact information. Last, we have a listserv where we occasionally send out compliance-focused information, and you can subscribe to that on the RSCP website. Thank you again.